Welcome to Louder Than Green, the show that spotlights the systems, tools, and stories behind purpose-driven businesses, because when values and systems align, everything scales. We are Green That Dream, and we help businesses go beyond green by building smarter systems that boost efficiency, profits, and real-world impact. From regenerative strategies to operational excellence, we're here for the businesses building better. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, stick around or head over to greenthatdream.com and DM us the word growth. Alrighty, let's get into it. Today, our guest is Wolf Lichtenstein, founder of Evergreen Carbon and a veteran in carbon markets, sustainability, and GHG accounting. With nearly 30 years of experience, Wolf helps organizations navigate carbon offset strategy with precision, integrity, and a deep commitment to meaningful climate impact. Today, we are going to be talking with him and looking at how we explore how companies can align carbon credits with business goals, what most leaders get wrong about carbon offsets, and where the biggest opportunities are hiding in your decarbonization journey. So, welcome, Wolf. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you,
Awesome.
Aimee.
Very nice to meet you as well. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I have a great passion for environmental work. I started as an environmental chemist, and I did that work for many years, and things change as life changes, and I ended up going back to grad school to restart kind of my environmental profession and refocus. And I've been working in carbon markets ever since. I've done a lot of auditing. I've done assessment work for the ANSI National Accreditation Board, which has taken me all over the world. There, I've worked as mostly technical, but also as a lead assessor. So making sure that the auditors are auditing carbon projects properly, type of thing. So I got exposed to a lot of carbon projects, and it was from that exposure that I started Evergreen Carbon, thinking that it's important to get these projects out to businesses, and these projects are amazing and a deep passion of mine.
Wonderful. It's a very exciting, fulfilling journey, it sounds like. So, can you talk just a little bit more about your business, what the impact that you're trying to get after, who you serve, and what's been a big win for you this year?
Yeah, okay. So Evergreen Carbon provides a bespoke solution to carbon credit procurement. So we'll provide either a portfolio or access to a single project. We have extensive market access through various different tools and relationships. And again, I've been in the carbon market ecosphere for a while. So, I have people to call when I need to. And through that bespoke process, we understand their company's needs and kind of what they want to do. I think a big win for us was, I guess, the end of last year. We're hoping to repeat it this year, but we had a fairly large international pharmaceutical company purchase carbon credits from us, or basically do specialty chemicals was the division that I worked with. And they were really interested in solutions that were nature-based and solutions that had strong evidence of sustainable development goals, which is, empowering women, positive childhood health outcomes, and the like, biodiversity preservation, all those things that go with a good nature-based project. And they were interested in that because I spoke with them and we talked about values, and I talked them out of using their budget on REX, which is another conversation, and focus on the carbon markets. And so it was great to be able to work with them. And we actually provided a portfolio of projects from different parts of the world that were all meaningful and had great SDGs, these Sustainable Development Goals.
Great. Wow, that's pretty exciting and impressive to get a pharmaceutical company kind of going along more of those green lines. Are you seeing a change in the businesses that you're serving with those goals?
Well, the companies that we work with are mostly already doing their greenhouse gas accounting, and they're looking for help to do the last mile. So they're large companies. Say Microsoft has their own environmental carbon desk, and they
Mm-hmm.
got their their procedures and guidance, and they're willing to invest anywhere and everywhere in order to help this market grow. Most companies are not doing that, and they're very careful with their budgets, with their environmental budgets, but usually there is a budget to do something. And net zero has been an increasingly, I hate to use the word popular goal, is basically here's the emission footprint for this year. We're going to offset that. And next year, that footprint should be smaller. So there's a balance for companies whether they're going to invest in carbon markets to mitigate their greenhouse gases. And then sometimes in the same bucket, it's like we need to do more efficiency and put in new systems ourselves in either our manufacturing or how we do business travel, any of those thousands of little things that create our greenhouse gas footprints. And, they might want to look on physical decarbonization. And that is an important and probably the first step. In what we can't decarbonize this year, we will offset, we'll mitigate, and then next year we'll do a little more decarbonization and purchase fewer carbon credits. So I'm in the business of putting myself out of business, essentially.
Right? Because you want people to not be moving away from that, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing when I started doing this 20 years ago in carbon markets, it was supposed to be the last 5% in carbon markets we're going to handle. Now it's everything. Everyone,
Yeah.
everywhere is looking. Oil and gas industries are looking to carbon markets. Everyone is looking at carbon markets to save our butts. And I don't think that's appropriate either. It's somewhere in the middle, but heavy decarbonization, and more importantly, is removing legacy greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. And Microsoft is an amazing example where they're going back to 1990, and they're going to remove all their legacy emissions while they're doing abatement of their current emissions. So, they're involved in buying renewable energy for their data centers, that type of thing. So it's
Okay.
all of the above, and smaller companies can do the same thing, but at their scale, at their appropriate scale, and we can help them get there.
Okay. So, what are some of your growth targets or goals for this year or whatever period you're interested? I'm just curious what that looks like.
Well, the actual transactions, once everything is set up and decisions are being made, the transactions go really quickly. So I am looking to greatly increase my customer base, and we made a couple new hires this year that are helping out with the business development and strategy and picking up the phone and making some calls. So I'm hopeful. I don't really want to like spit out numbers. We're kind of a relatively low overhead for what we do. I do have to pay for some market access and pay for my registry accounts, and I have to go to conferences and keep up on news sources. So there is some time and money definitely involved in keeping Evergreen Carbon going, but it's not an extraordinarily amount of money where I'm creating a new manufacturing line. So I'm
Right.
basically representing all carbon projects, and some projects are just amazing what they do, and people should be buying them because companies should be buying them because it's the least they can do. It's the least we can do. And when we look at the SDGs, we're also we're helping the communities and we're helping the environment in a direct manner, certainly with nature based, but even with a more industrial type of carbon removal. It maybe not be sexy and exciting, doesn't help the community, might create a few jobs, but it's all important. They're
Right. Right.
they all have their place. And so I like to kind of match the values and the energy of that company with kind of the products that they might need as far as mitigation of greenhouse
Right.
gases. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like your services would be in very high demand for companies.
the ones that we contact and, ones that use us, absolutely. And many companies, because it's a annual purchase,
Yeah,
so it's not like they're going to afford to hire and create an environmental desk that just
right.
does their mitigation. So we kind of can slip in for a month, talk to them, put together some proposal. Here's 5 projects that meet your requirements. They're all available right now. These
Hmm.
are different pricing, you can mix and match or pick on a single one. And from my discussions with project developers, project owners, and proponents of carbon projects, they would love to have corporate sponsors or corporates, come down and visit
Hmm.
project sites and know what they're buying. And so many companies just want to just give me the number, here it is. And there's a meaningfulness of these projects. So
Right.
somewhere in the middle of actually going down there and saying, hey, I'm Joe with company XYZ, and we have a huge smokestack and we're going to mitigate this with
Hmm.
the project, from that to really getting to know the people, knowing the community, and understanding how meaningful the SDGs are. It's not charity. You're getting a service. You're paying for an environmental service of carbon removal. And it's a valuable thing. So I want to see prices increase. I want to see more companies buying them. The ones that make this commitment, they want to do it right. And I think that there has been some greenwashing in this industry in the past. I personally haven't run into it. In fact, I've run into the opposite, which is green hushing, where under the current administration, maybe they don't want to talk about what they're doing so much. It's still too woke or something. And so they'll still do the action, but it may not, it might be buried in their annual sustainability report someplace.
Mm,
And either way, I'm happy to provide the pictures if there's video from the project or discussions. And I love being on site at these carbon projects. They're amazing. I learn about the local culture, and you have some ancient culture who's been in the rainforest forever, and they all use cell phones, but they may not know too much about a banking system. So it's quite fascinating.
interesting. It's interesting how tied the process is, I guess, to the community. That's an interesting
It
aspect of it.
certainly can be. If
Yeah.
anything, it creates jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
if you're a landfill and you're
Mm-hmm.
now creating carbon credits from destroying the methane instead of letting it be fugitive methane going out in our atmosphere, and you spend $1 million to create the infrastructure to do that, well, that's at least 1 or 2 FTEs to install and manage such a system. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can create a job. And then on the grander scale, in a big forest project in a rainforest without a lot of
Mm,
infrastructure, there's park rangers. They provide nurseries and provide trees for planting. They do agroforestry. The carbon finance rolls in and builds a school, provides wells for clean water, and like cook stoves are great for like personal health, right? You're not breathing
yeah.
all these fumes and particulate matter. You're using an efficient cook stove, and you're using less biomass, so the kids are not gathering firewood. They're going to school.
Thing. Yeah, that's interesting. So let's talk about what's getting in the way with your process. I mean, you talked a little bit before we got on here about challenges. I'm curious to know what are some of your
Yeah,
operational challenges?
Yeah, with any sales process, there's challenges to sales. You get a lot of no's, and so it's hard to create your pipeline or funnel, whatever those business development people call it. But having enough customers like coming through and having those conversations, the
Mm-hmm.
the the clients that I have, they year to year, I talk with them every year, and the decision is made. It's very simple. So I think challenges is kind of growing a customer base and like be able to communicate to companies that this is a thing to be doing. A lot of them are doing greenhouse gases because it's necessary for them, whether
Mm-hmm.
they're reporting voluntarily or being forced by the jurisdiction to report, but then they don't go any further. And so we need to convince them that it's worthwhile to do the last mile. It's a worthwhile investment for planet and people. And what about your grandkids? So you're
Mhm.
either part of the solution or part of the problem. There's no, on climate change, there's no middle ground.
Right,
And
right.
so I think one of the obstacles is certainly in the United States, the current administration is like this pro oil, and they're selling leases left and right for oil
Yeah.
exploration, cutting out EV credits, all kinds of like important innovations to help us transition to a low carbon future. These guys are getting in the way of every possibility. And then corporations are kind of caught flat footed, right? The path that they were on to be more sustainable is now out of favor with the government that they pay taxes to. And so
Mm.
there's a dissonance. And I think we just have to push through it. It's not, the dissonance is not going to last forever. And so, those of us, when I work in carbon markets, it doesn't matter what the role, who I talk to, these are amazingly dedicated, purposeful people that I so admire. And there's a lot of integrity out there in the marketplace. It really is. People
Mhm.
want to do the right thing. They don't get involved in carbon projects and climate change unless they, embrace it as an issue, because
Right.
you're going to make more money as a broker or doing some other thing than you carbon projects. So these are dedicated people. I think we'll muscle through. We'll get through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
We
of
ask the
course.
press to do a better job in their critiques, because one project, has an issue, and then the press writes about it because the issue was discovered. It was discovered by the verification team. That's the whole purpose of carbon
Right.
markets. When a problem shows up, because that land is under protection of the carbon project, when a problem, wildcat cutting down of rare trees or big trees, that gets caught and it gets remediated, and
Mhm.
credits change hands and buffers come into place, and people get arrested or people get fined. And there's, because we have this added protection, and in many of these countries they just do not have the economic ability to police their own forest. And so carbon finance helps do that, and it helps the communities. There's a project briefly in Cambodia where people were found in the forest catching bush meat and cutting down trees. And the remedy to that, when they were caught, chainsaws and stuff were sold off because they were illegally in that forest. And then
Mhm.
those people were given land and training on drip agriculture and teaching them, like, you don't have to do this. You can grow your own food and live in this village here with your friends and everyone else. Like, let's teach better behavior, more sustainable behavior. And some of these SDGs actually provide economic stimulus to the communities, money for microloans, or training and how to sell their crafts, and
Mm.
ecotourism are part of these processes. And so the project developer and the proponents get in there and they, respect the culture, but they also make adjustments, say it's not cool to cut down your own trees for charcoal anymore. You shouldn't be doing that. But here's an alternative. And you have to provide the alternative, and you have to, like, work with the elders of the community and make a shift. And then the elders might say, we used to do this a long time ago. And we can go back. We can go back. I talked to a gentleman who was doing a mangrove project in Kenya, and the way they figured out the hydrology of the area was to talk to the elders, to
Yeah.
see what it was before all the dikes were built, before all this. And so, if you want to grow mangroves, which is a great thing to be doing, it sequesters carbon, it protects from storms, it
Mm.
provides habitat for fish. It's a great thing to have, but they cut them down to burn it so they can cook their food. But now they
Mhm.
have less food and they're more endangered. So you plant the mangroves back again. So it's how do we know where to plant and what the hydrology was like and where to reach a dike or something, it's
The knowledge from natives and the elders is so priceless, and I've been seeing that a lot in work that I've done with water resource management, is like looking at what the natives did and
yeah.
going back to that.
Honestly,
um,
it's true, and that's the prophecy as well.
yeah,
That the South will help the North, and the North will help the
right,
South.
right,
The
yeah.
eagle and the condor flying together. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you mentioned some of your challenges, but a lot of it, like what you're saying with like the current administration, it's like it's such a messaging kind of challenge, right? And it has to evolve with the times and everything. So that's interesting. So, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one root issue with the carbon markets, what what would that be?
I would normalize it. So this is the normal way all businesses behave. Every business does their greenhouse gas accounting, scope one, two, and three. They understand where they can reduce and where they can't, and where they can't, they go to to a rigorous carbon market, the rigor of the voluntary carbon market, and buy meaningful carbon credits from meaningful projects that help the
Mm-hmm.
environment, help our collective atmosphere to survive. That's what I would do as far as my business. Climate change would be another, I would want a second wish for the whole climate change thing. But for carbon markets, maybe a third
Yeah,
wish too. But for the carbon markets, this is what I want it to be normal. I want it to be trust. And it's like you pay your taxes. Part of that is being net zero carbon neutral at the very least. It doesn't deal with the legacy greenhouse gases. At least we're kind of stopping more. You can't empty a bathtub efficiently if the faucet is still on. So you need
yeah,
to turn that faucet down and slowly do carbon, or quickly do carbon dioxide removal
right,
from the atmosphere, whether it's a marine environment or land based. We
right,
need to do it properly, rigorously, and at this point, we need to take a little risk in that CDR, that
yeah.
carbon dioxide removal. We need to get it. Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a big wish. But I
Well,
agree with
yes,
you.
it's a wish.
I love it. I don't see why we can't normalize it, as you say. Like that makes perfect sense. So I know you mentioned some of your challenges. I'm just curious if there's like internal capabilities or processes that are really holding you back from achieving what you're trying to achieve in your business.
Yeah, and I think we're facing maybe what other purveyors of carbon credits are. It's like finding enough buyers, enough committed buyers. I think
Mm,
that's really the challenge to it. And I've done group buys and try to figure out ways to get companies to participate. We worked with small and medium sized businesses, and I'd like to work for, medium sized and larger businesses now. I think the ones with the larger footprints have the most work to do.
yeah, have them act.
I think it's as part of my wish that this is a normal thing. It shouldn't be so hard. They should be knocking on our doors, because I don't know they don't know the carbon
Hmm.
markets. I do. They need a little hand holding. Our margins are small. I'm a small business with low overhead. People are surprised at low cost right now with some of these magnificent projects. And
Yeah,
so if you're going to buy, today is like a great day.
yeah, better than tomorrow, right? I mean, how are some of those tools been working for you in your efforts?
Well, we're getting some conversations. People are interested, and carbon markets has been around for a while, but in many regards, there's one article in the Guardian or something like that. I don't have confidence in the market anymore. It's like,
Hmm.
get it together. I mean, my God, it's like you buy candy with a dye in it that turns out to be healthy or unhealthy. You don't swear off candy. You just
Right.
find a different chocolate bar. And the company, which they're announcing, they're removing those dangerous dyes from the U.S. market. So they're doing
Hmm.
that on a voluntary basis. And so because there's enough of public awareness, and so I
Yeah.
want to have more public awareness of what I see as a beautiful, magical coming together of community and professionals and worldwide climate change coming together to solve a problem in some corner of the world. And we find projects where I live in the Pacific Northwest, down to Argentina and Chile, to even in Europe, but certainly all over Africa, and many countries are hosting carbon projects that are magnificent. Southeast Asia hosts projects, and we're not doing enough, and we need
Yeah.
to collectively do more.
Yeah. I mean, what would that look like if we're not required to do it? Is it a messaging issue? What is the issue with the information that's out there?
Yeah, I think there's a messaging and a lack of understanding. I've even talked to professionals who do environmental work or related work, and they don't quite understand where the carbon markets are at. They know about it, they know some things about it, but they don't look to it as solving this problem.
Right.
And then or others are saying, oh, we'll just buy carbon credits and we don't have to do anything. And that's not the answer either. So
Right.
it's a coordinated, and I would describe as the last mile. So I would say I
Mm,
want companies to do their ESG work, their environmental, social, and governance work that they do, and then the last mile,
mm,
let's mitigate some of that carbon while we can. Let's
right.
invest in a project that's doing good work, that you can communicate to your employees. I worked for companies that gave a lot of money to charities, and I felt really good about that. It's like it wasn't going in my pocket, but it
Mm,
wasn't going in the CEO's pocket either. I was working towards contributing to good causes, and I think that's a good thing. And it's like you're working for some software company, you have a footprint. There's a data center that's managing your data, that's sucking electrons from a coal plant. There's so much we can do, and just awareness. I think raising awareness, or raising kind of the work that carbon markets do. So
yeah.
it can be a trusted entity. Okay, well, I can't change my boiler this year. I'm still using natural gas. There's no way
Right.
to switch right now. We don't have the money. We don't have the technology. I'm going to mitigate. Least I can do. There's bylaws under jurisdictions. There are emission trading schemes, and the Paris Agreement is getting Article 6 going and putting together infrastructure. So there is hope in the compliance markets, and for the rest of us, the voluntary markets are going to be equally meaningful. And the voluntary markets feed the compliance markets. Where do those credits come from? So
Yeah.
a project developer will develop a project originally for the voluntary carbon market, but then do the extra work to get it up for meaningful for the Paris. And so for a company can purchase those carbon credits as a nation to lower their exposure and to meet the commitments that they've made.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I have to admit, I mean, in the environmental world, and I don't know a ton about carbon markets, so you kind of hit the nail on the head. But it's so important, and so I'm just thinking, it's like, gosh, where should that information be, right? Like, where should that information live? Like, how do we get that message to more people?
All you have to do, look, ask Chat
Yeah,
GPT.
yeah,
There's so much information, and the markets have been dynamic and interesting
sure.
with new methodologies being published. So new different types of carbon
Okay.
projects coming on board. There's new registries that are
Uh,
providing new methodologies, and they're all well done. The existing registries, evolve as well, and so their guidance and their standards are improved every year. It is fascinating to see this continual improvement in these marketplaces. And early on, I'm like, no, we're not giving you carbon credits from solar panels in China. That's not going to work. So there's a concept of additionality. right? It's beyond business as usual. So the
Mm-hmm.
idea of the carbon projects originally was to demonstrate this sustainable way of managing land or resources
Mm-hmm.
or energy, give you carbon credits for doing this because it's beyond business as usual, but then your industry moves towards that direction. And at some point, it is business as usual. And I haven't seen enough of that happening, to be honest.
Gotcha.
I think the carbon credits are there. Maybe it's too early to see that, but crediting periods are from 10 to 30 years, maybe even longer in a nature based. Usually after 10 years, they have to reapply type of thing. So the and methodologies get updated.
Mm-hmm.
People learn more. And now kind of in our prep, we talked about like AI and those types of tools. Those are becoming more prevalent in the carbon market. So if anything, things are getting more accurate and better and more rigor. And so
Mm-hmm.
measuring a tree is one thing at 5 feet, from the base, but then there is an AI and satellite data that can confirm that, or vice versa.
Right.
So you do
Right.
less. Maybe you're doing less field work because you've modeled this with AI, and so you can actually do the project for maybe ultimately for less money, and then the carbon credits will be a little bit cheaper, and or more money flows back to the community, right, which is important.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are you using AI, or how is AI and technology helping your business?
Well, from Evergreen Carbon's perspective, AI is a great tool. It helps with our writing. It helps kind of define our ideas. It kind of gives us templates in the communication, either from a critical email to a LinkedIn post to what I have to write this proposal together, and it's saving me time. I don't give out just like AI do this and hand it out. I review it and edit
Yeah.
it and make it into my voice, and
Yeah.
making sure the information is there because I still want it to be Evergreen Carbon's property or thoughts or profile or personality in what we send out there. But it does shorten time in business processes, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more automation. How we have these note takers that come in, we get on a Google call or
I
something like
know.
that, or Teams, and the AI just invites itself, and all of a sudden
Yep.
it's recording you, and then 15 minutes after your call, you get an email with the notes from the call, which is nice. So those types of things from the
Yeah.
industry, from project developers, from actually creating more robust carbon markets. My God, the application of AIs, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface. But I,
Okay.
you know, I did mention like satellite data and
Yeah.
analyzing that satellite data and trying from a picture from pixels to say this much carbon is here because we're looking at the pixels and the canopy. It's pretty amazing, I think. And
Yeah.
especially when the satellite is free data that is, because our taxes paid for it, right? And there are other services that are maybe even more what's the word, have more detail in
Yeah.
that, and those cost money, and still
Yeah.
tools are built around those. So developing projects, modeling, understanding the best way that the marine environment is going to be a place that has
Hmm.
already absorbed so much carbon in a non-discriminatory way. What we need to do is find marine environments, and there are techniques out there that we can safely remove carbon dioxide from a particular area in a careful way, and then
Yeah.
that water will then absorb more carbon, and then that cycle.
Yeah.
So the carbon cycle, we don't understand the oceans well enough and the carbon cycles in the ocean, but we do know that the waters are becoming more acidic and makes it challenging for
Yeah.
shellfish and other species.
For sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
AI is going to help us with a lot, understanding and studies.
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward like a, an exponential increase in
Right.
liquidity and the variety in the carbon markets. That's what I'm hoping these tools will give us.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I actually I did some work with mangroves and land cover change using satellite imagery. So that's really exciting that you kind of talked about those things. And I'm sure, yeah, with AI and everything, just all of that modeling. I mean, I got to go to El Salvador to ground truth my data, which was
Right.
great. But now with all these tools, we probably don't have to do as much of that, which can help too, like less
It would be a
resources used.
shorter, yeah, it'd be a shorter trip with a little more sightseeing built in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, that's really exciting. Yeah. So what is kind of one system or solution that you've created that's really had like a game-changing impact for your clients?
I think just our approach of kind of doing a bespoke approach and understanding we don't own or hold carbon credits. Well, I do, obviously, for various different reasons. I have an
Right.
online marketplace for small
Mm-hmm.
amounts and I hold carbon credits there, but generally, I don't hold a lot. So I'm not pushing any one project. Other purveyors of carbon credits, some of those businesses develop projects and they're selling their own. So we have these five projects and you're buying one of those five projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then I might come in and say, well, this one PD out there, they have five projects. I think this one out of their five is appropriate, but here's some other projects that are also complementary and meeting your needs as well. And so we can, choose, really any project that's being sold in the marketplace. If I can get a volume of even probably even small as 5,000, but 10,000 or more, it's easy enough for me to procure these because I'm set up to do that and I speak the language. How, we provide that service. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically operationalizing this carbon market knowledge into a bespoke business as opposed to, I'm selling corn on the cob and that's all you're going to get. And
Right.
I'm offering the whole barbecue, whatever you want.
Mm.
You want chicken, whatever, corn, carrots.
Right.
What's important? What do you like most? What resonates? What's going to resonate with your employees? What's going to
Yeah.
resonate with your C suite?
Yeah.
And so it's those arguments that being being the sustainability consultant for many years as well, alongside this carbon market stuff, is like I really understand what these businesses are up against and what they need to do in order to
Mm.
manage something that their systems have not been built to manage. And so they're
Right.
trying to pull information out of we're not built, to
Build
do
that
that.
way.
And so
Yeah.
all of that. So again, it's like my wish is like this is a thing. This is like as important as any other annual reporting that you do. You do a
Right.
10Ks are requiring like a sustainability kind of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's expand on that and let's make sure
Mm-hmm.
that every business every year has to report how they're dealing with climate change because many businesses are at risk. Maybe their factories are along the coast and they're going to be hit by a hurricane or rising sea levels, or
Mm-hmm.
if they deal with food, agricultural systems are so germane to carbon markets and that they may not get that. They might be able to be a source of carbon removal, but unless they kind of think outside the box of traditional agricultural practices, particularly on factory farms where this is works, we're making money here, we're not going to experiment. They
Yeah.
might make less money doing it in a
Right.
more sustainable manner, but the long term for the planet, for their grandkids, make less money. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to be sustainable and happy on our planet Earth. I think if we can get that mind change, that thinking, that fear factor that drives us towards profits. One book I read in graduate school was Limits of Growth. And there's an understanding we live on a finite planet. Sustainability, carbon markets are helping us live, in a sustainable way. And
Yeah.
until we finally learn to have all societies focus on
Right.
that, what's important. There's a lot of cars burning gasoline and diesel, and there are electric vehicles. We can hasten that shift, and we can dump a
Yeah.
bunch of money in research and make it go even faster. We're leaving it to the marketplace to solve it instead of we the people to solve it. And I think we need both. We need
Yeah.
innovations in the marketplace, but we also need a set of policies and elected representatives that get it. That
Yeah.
that that fear for us doing nothing is going to overwhelm us like a flood that we've seen, right? Same
Yeah.
thing.
I hope it just doesn't get to the point it's like you don't realize you have a water issue until you have no water, right?
Exactly.
So I really hope it doesn't get to that point, that critical point. And I mean, I don't know, like, do you feel that it's possible to be both sustainable and profitable?
Absolutely. And the focus should be on both.
Yeah.
How can I be profitable and sustainable? We know how
Hmm.
to be profitable and unsustainable, and we don't realize we're unsustainable till we hit those limits. And now, as a planet, we are hitting those limits. We're seeing heat waves, we're seeing wildfires, we're seeing incredible flooding, we're seeing livelihoods disappear,
Yeah.
we're farmers unable to make it any longer, and ranchers and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like the family has owned the farm for 100 years, and all of a sudden you can't make ends meet. Farming has always been difficult, but with climate change, you can't. We haven't had rain this year. There's nothing you can do about that, right? You
Yeah.
can do some
Yeah.
irrigation, but eventually your aquifers are empty. And so we need to be able to live within our means, and we need to, I don't know what the answers are, but I know that we need to be paying attention to these things. I do
Yes.
know that
Yes.
much.
Yeah.
And humans are great at innovation. We can
Yeah.
solve a problem and we painted ourselves in a corner here, but we'll find our way out, I believe. But it would be nice to find our way out with most of us still living,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and and that we still enjoy this green, amazing planet with deer and
Yeah.
antelope play and everything, that we value. And I think, if you ask for another wish, it's like people should get closer to nature. Nature is really healing, and we separate that from ourselves, and we don't even get it. And so paying attention to carbon markets, to me, at least in nature pay, I'm paying attention to nature, and I'm looking at some corner of India that's distributing cook stoves so the community doesn't cut down their forests.
Uh,
That's a service, man. If you can support
yeah.
that, you're a champ. You're a champ to planet
That's
Earth.
awesome.
So,
That's so great. Cool. Well, so why don't we just as we wrap up here, looking at what's next? Do you have a project or initiative that you're working on right now that you would like listeners to know about, support, get involved with, besides the
well,
obvious?
again, we're a small business, so I do and have done quite a bit of education around this, from teaching greenhouse gas
Great.
accounting, I know, teaching about carbon markets and about specific projects, or some of the technologies around, or kind of methodologies, ISO standards, that type of stuff. So, I think maybe the biggest project, or the biggest kind of hill we need to climb, is to get that information out there, and
Yeah.
to find the proper audience. This podcast is part of it. You're part of my big project here. So, Aimee,
Yay.
thank you for the time to do that and get the word out about
Yeah.
the carbon markets and being a sustainable business, and focusing on planet and people. And economics will take care of itself. It really will. If we're on a happy, vibrant planet, we're going to find ways to make everyone happy. And so we need to balance our wealth, we need to balance our energy, and we need to balance between sustainability and profitability. Both are important, and I don't believe one has to sacrifice the other. I think we can all exist happily together, and we need to find those ways to do that. So that's the big hill, is evolution. Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Conscious evolution. It's easy. Just throw
Yes.
it out there. Sure, and everyone's going to raise their hand. I want to consciously evolve here.
Yeah.
Go for it. Whatever practice you have, get close to nature, get close to the community, get close
Yeah.
to whatever your spirit is, and do what's important, do what's right, and think about not from an individual selfish perspective, but look at it from a community of human beings on planet Earth. We are this pale blue dot floating in space, ultimately around some small, tiny average
Yeah.
star. We need to carry that perspective, how precious your experience is, how precious life is. And if you can appreciate how precious our planet is, then perhaps you'll be motivated to do more and do less destruction at the very least. And
Yeah.
that message has to resonate with everyone on this planet, from the C suite to the guy living in the shanty town trying to just find food for
Right.
the
I agree. I love that. I agree with you 100%. I'm a nature lover. I couldn't live in
day.
anywhere but around trees and just yeah, nature's I mean they've shown green space is essential.
Yeah.
So I love that you shared all that. I just one last question. What would you say to business owners that they don't know anything about carbon credits maybe? But is there something, an action step or a challenge that you could give to business owners today?
Yeah. I would say do your greenhouse gas accounting, do your carbon footprint, know where you stand. If you've done it, then look to carbon markets or other ways or your sources of greenhouse gases and work on decarbonization through either equipment upgrades or process changes or procedural changes. And otherwise, look to carbon markets to mitigate their carbon footprint. But knowing that, doing that carbon footprint helps us understand where all the greenhouse gases your operations are coming from. Sometimes you have to do a full life cycle analysis of a particular supply chain. But when you talk to your supply chains, the people you buy stuff from, the people you sell stuff to, talk to them about how we can be more sustainable together and how we can work together. There might be projects, carbon projects that will gain carbon credits and essentially finance money, or it's just more efficiency between these companies and be synchronous and understand how we can source companies. There have been stories. I learned about this in graduate school when I studied of a company saying, look, I got three suppliers. Two of them are not sustainable. This third one is
Mm-hmm.
doing more sustainability work. Their product is the same as the others, but it costs a little more. You know what? I'm going to get the one that's more sustainable, that costs a little more. So when I do my scope free footprinting, I'm going to have a smaller number. And even that, beyond that, I am promoting more sustainable behavior. So those other two companies are going to up their game and maybe change their processes to be more competitive. So money is not the only bottom line we need to be thinking about. So if I talk to companies, it's like, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? And then it's like, oh, we're not doing anything. And then I raise my hands in frustration. What about your grandchildren? What about the legacy you leave behind? What about attracting young employees, motivated employees to your business to work for you, to work with you, to make you more successful? You know, we're
Yeah.
becoming more aware
Yeah.
as a community, as a society. We need to actualize that.
Yeah.
Corporations, people who operate corporations we all have to work. We all are involved in businesses. So, let's get our act together. Let's reassess our values. That's
Yeah.
what I would say. Reassess
Yeah.
your values, thinking about your kids,
I was just going to say, think about your
talk to
kids and
young
those values.
people, talk to young
Yeah.
people, talk to people who have been around for a while, talk about the people whose businesses have failed, talk to people
Yep.
whose businesses have succeeded, and then talk to Evergreen Carbon, and we'll help you get to that decarbonization, to that net zero step. We're happy to help.
Great. Where can people find you?
Well, evergreencarbon.com just trips off the tongue is our website. Info at evergreencarbon.com will get to us and to my colleague to respond. I think that would be a good start. Follow us on LinkedIn. Would be another place. I do have a Facebook account, but I don't go there very much. So I maybe should start to post there more, but it didn't seem like it was like a place that was driving business, but LinkedIn certainly is. So those are a few places to find us. I have a blog post, Wolf blog. I've written a few pieces up there. I got another one almost ready to go. Yeah, so
Nice.
climate communication and contact us. I'm willing to talk to people about carbon markets, even if you're not a customer. Man, I just want to raise the awareness because you might know someone else. So I'm happy to get the message out and to share the knowledge. And I want people who enter the carbon market to be as knowledgeable as they can. And I can help
Mhm.
that. I can hold your hand or give you a kick and get you going.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Wolf. It was such a pleasure to chat with you and learn all about this. I learned a ton. So thank you.
Aimee, thank
I look
you. Thank you.
for everything that you do.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
I am your host, Aimee Haasteaby, and I would just like to say that I am so truly grateful to each guest who takes the time to share their story, and to you, the listener, for being part of this community. This show is about learning out loud, connecting ideas, and amplifying the voices of people doing the real work of building a regenerative future. Let's keep turning up the volume on smart systems, bold ideas, and the businesses shaping what's next. So please join me and keep showing up, keep speaking up, and keep it louder than green. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.